Let me tell you a story about how Aunt Ellen lost her house and $932,000 in savings. Aunt Ellen lost a lawsuit stemming from a car accident. She wasn't a driver of any automobile involved in the accident. In fact, she wasn't even anywhere near the scene of the accident. So how did Aunt Ellen lose her house and nearly everything she owned? The driver of the vehicle that caused the accident was her nephew. He needed a car and she loaned him money to buy the car. Shortly after her nephew bought this car, he drove it through a stop sign and hit another car. The driver of that car landed in the hospital. This person Google searched and found an attorney. In cases like this, the attorney is typically only paid if they reach a settlement or win a judgment. This means they will only take the case if they think there's money to get. They will start with an asset search to see if the nephew has any money. He obviously didn't, or he wouldn't have been borrowing money for the car. The nephew is the one who made the mistake and caused this accident and the injury. So you would think it would end here. But it does not end here. Next, the attorney will start searching for what is called a deep pocket defendant. They're looking for someone with money that they can go after. Was the nephew intoxicated? If so, they might be able to go after the establishment that served him alcohol. Was he on medication? If so, they might be able to go after the physician, the pharmacist, or the drug company. This stop sign was in front of someone's house in a residential neighborhood. Did the homeowner properly maintain all their shrubs or trees? Or was there some minor obstruction of the view of the stop sign? If so, they might be able to go after the homeowner. They are searching for any way they can indirectly rope a deep pocket defendant into the case. In this case, it was Aunt Ellen. The jury determined that Aunt Ellen was guilty of negligible entrustment, that she should not have financed the car for her nephew, knowing he was careless and would cause an accident. Do you think this is right? What would you do if you were Aunt Ellen and you had a legal loophole available to escape the liability of this case? Would you use it or would you pay up? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Whatever you may think about the facts of this case, modern law has evolved to make it nearly impossible to avoid these types of liabilities, no matter how prudent or careful you are. This is why you need to educate yourself and start asset protection planning. Even if you're just getting started on your journey to financial independence, this is an important subject. You should at least learn some of the basics so you can protect yourself and your family. This is a deep subject with all sorts of esoteric legal strategies. In this video, we'll cover the basics of asset protection, the legality of asset protection, the morality of asset protection, and simple strategies that apply to everyone. Remember that I am not an attorney. I will share the most important and relevant information I've learned about asset protection, but you should definitely consult an attorney and do your own research. Before we continue, I just want to ask you to support free financial education. My name is Nick Doyle. I pack a lot of value into my videos to help you achieve financial independence. I do this for free. All I ask is that you smash the like button and subscribe. While you may have not thought explicitly about asset protection before, you probably engage in asset protection almost every day. When you lock the door to your car or your home, that's asset protection. When you go to the gym to work out and protect your health, that is asset protection. When you buy life insurance to protect your family, that is asset protection. The first part of asset protection is considering what you are protecting and what you are protecting against. When you store your money, you put it in a bank or you hide it. You're protecting against theft. For basic theft, it's reasonably simple to protect against. Even if someone steals from you, you can usually go to the authorities for help. Banks will reverse many fraudulent transactions. The government will investigate and possibly recover your stolen assets. You can also buy insurance against most types of theft. You're probably familiar with all of these types of asset protection. The more challenging part of asset protection is when you start building wealth in your investment accounts, your home, and even protecting your future earnings potential. Most people don't know much about protecting these types of assets. As we saw in the story at the beginning, it is common practice to search for a deep pocket defendant. Nobody is going to sue someone who doesn't have any money. This would be the equivalent of lighting money on fire. They will only bring a suit against someone that they can extract money from, the deep pocket defendant. Some will even start a lawsuit even if there is little chance they will win in court. Most cases don't even go to trial. As the target of such a lawsuit, your best case outcome could be a $100,000 legal bill and an exhausting legal battle that may go on for a couple years. They know this, and they're actually looking to extract a settlement to get them to go away. Right or wrong, this is what happens. This is who and what we are protecting against. A solid asset protection plan is intended to make it extremely difficult for these type of people to find out you have wealth, a strong shield to help defend against these types of shakedowns, and to make it difficult to collect on potential judgments. You want it to be a fight they don't think will be worth initiating. You want to have an insurance company fighting them for you. You want it to be questionable if they will even be able to collect if they manage to win a judgment. The stronger your asset protection plan is, the less likely someone will come after you, since they will be less likely to succeed. They'll most likely go after someone that is an easier target. What about the legality of asset protection? Developing an asset protection plan is completely legal if done properly. You have to take action before you do anything that may result in a lawsuit. If you injure someone and start moving your assets around just in case they sue you, that is fraudulent. You'll be ordered to undo such transactions and could likely be put in jail. It's not whether you get sued, but when you perform the act that results in the suit. Next, consider the fact that a judge and jury will apply some degree of moral judgment against your asset protection plan. If you're being immoral, they are much less likely to rule in your favor. The best asset protection strategies involve things that make sense regardless of asset protection. For instance, 401ks have some of the strongest asset protection. A judge and a jury aren't going to think you put money into a 401k just to avoid potential liability. It makes sense to invest in a 401k regardless of asset protection. It is perfectly legal to engage in asset protection planning as long as you aren't doing it in a fraudulent way. You should confirm the legality of your plan with an attorney and your own research. Even if asset protection is legal, is it moral? Some strategies will allow you to shield assets from creditors. Even if you lose a lawsuit, it's possible you could declare bankruptcy and keep most of your assets. This obviously has significant moral implications. Let's say you were negligent and injured someone. In my opinion, you should not hide behind a strategically planned bankruptcy to avoid paying them. You should do what is right. However, if you're in a situation like Aunt Ellen, the morality starts to get much more blurry. I would probably leverage my asset protection plan in this type of scenario. If Aunt Ellen had a solid asset protection plan, it's possible she could have avoided going to trial or even gone through bankruptcy and kept most of her assets. You will bear more moral responsibility with asset protection. It may be very difficult to do the right thing. Even without bankruptcy, asset protection can help deter people. The fact that your asset protection plan will make it difficult to collect may prevent people from coming after you or influence them to settle for a lower amount. Note that when we talk about asset protection, we are talking about civil lawsuits. Most of these protections all go right out the window if you are guilty of a criminal act, if the IRS comes after you, or if you owe something like child support or alimony. Now let's discuss some simple strategies everyone can use for asset protection. First is to take care of your health, family, and relationships. These are the most valuable assets most people have and are often overlooked. I just wanted to stress this before going on to financial assets. Next, you want to limit knowledge of your wealth. Be as secretive as you can about your wealth. If you get into an auto accident with someone who's driving a Lamborghini versus someone in a Toyota, which person are you more likely to consider suing? While we're talking about this, if you're nice to people and act with integrity, they will be much less likely to sue you. Don't forget the basics. They're basically your first line of defense. The next line of defense is insurance. You want to be properly insured against liability. Driving a car is probably the most risky activity for most people. Not only do you risk injury to yourself, you risk injury to others and damage to their property. You have similar insurance for your home. If you have a trampoline and some kids sneak onto your property, use your trampoline without permission, and injure themselves, you could get sued. I think it is very important to have high liability coverage. I think the most effective way to obtain this coverage is with an umbrella insurance policy. An umbrella policy requires certain limits of liability on your home and auto insurance, usually around $300,000 to $500,000. Then any liabilities that go over that amount will be covered by the umbrella. It will also cover liability in addition to just car and auto. Umbrella policies are sold in increments of $1 million. A $1 million umbrella for a couple is usually around $200 per year. It's pretty cheap considering the coverage you get. Insurance is a great line of defense. If someone comes after you, the insurance company is going to defend you since they're on the hook for a possibly large payout. Next, we have to consider what happens if you do get sued and you lose. Hopefully, your insurance is sufficient to cover it. If not, your assets will be at risk. You will have to sell or transfer your assets until you pay off the judgment. You may have to declare bankruptcy. Even if you're prudent and don't have any debt, you could get forced into bankruptcy after a legal suit. Bankruptcy planning is an important part of asset protection. In bankruptcy, there are certain assets that are exempt. This means you get to keep them through bankruptcy. You want to plan to be able to take advantage of these exemptions. This is called exemption planning. One of the best exemptions is the 401k. Federal law exempts most 401ks and other employer-sponsored retirement accounts in bankruptcy. This law is what allowed O.J. Simpson to keep a multi-million-dollar retirement benefit through bankruptcy. This is probably one of the simplest and most powerful ways of protecting your assets. Some people will suggest that 401ks are a waste of time, which is questionable even for tax purposes. But why would you give up this legal protection? If an attorney figures out you're a multimillionaire, but it's all in a 401k, they probably aren't going to come after you. They know they won't be able to collect even if they win a lawsuit. Remember, asset protection is about preventing people from coming after you as much as it is about protecting the assets once they do. In addition to 401ks, many other assets are exempt depending on the state in which you live. This is because bankruptcy laws vary by state. You need to look at the exemptions for your state. You can Google this. Some states protect IRAs entirely. Some will only protect a limited amount, and some states provide no protection of IRAs. The common advice dispensed is to always roll over a 401k to an IRA once you leave an employer. Or for financial advisors, they'll want you to roll over assets to them so they can manage them and collect a fee. This advice is usually not considering asset protection. You should consider this before rolling over a 401k to an IRA. Some states also protect health savings accounts, which are best used as another retirement account. Between 401ks, IRAs, and HSAs, a couple could contribute over $130,000 per year to these accounts. This is extremely powerful. Another common exemption is the homestead exemption. Many states will protect some or all of your house in bankruptcy. This is important to factor in to your decision to pay off a mortgage early versus investing. Some states will protect some amount of cars, jewelry, life insurance, annuities, or other assets. By strategically planning, you can move a significant amount of your assets into the millions of dollars into these types of exempt categories. One aspect of bankruptcy law you could exploit is shopping around for states with the most favorable bankruptcy laws. I know this sounds kind of crazy, but if you're sued and have to go into bankruptcy, this is extremely important, and you want to plan ahead. Even if you're sued in one state, you can move to another state, declare bankruptcy in that state, and their bankruptcy laws could apply. Now, there are some limitations in some states on how long you must live there before you can use their bankruptcy laws, so you'll need to double check. Florida has some of the strongest asset protection of all states. Even if your current state doesn't protect your IRA or HSA, others like Florida will. Florida also has an unlimited homestead exemption, meaning you could keep a $20 million home through bankruptcy. Even more interesting, if you get sued, you can move to Florida and buy a house with nearly all of your exposed assets. Even though this would typically be considered a fraudulent transfer, there is case law where Florida has protected this under the homestead exemption. You should check the details, but moving to Florida could be a great last-ditch asset protection plan. Depending on the types of assets you have, you can plan ahead for which state is best and makes most sense for you. Some states will provide unlimited protection of cash value of life insurance policies or annuities. These can be another aspect of your asset protection plan. If you're building a very sizable taxable account, it might make sense to explore these. These products have a bad reputation since the commissions and fees are typically very high, but these instruments can make sense depending on your goals and risk tolerance. They can make sense for some people and have strong asset protection in many states. Make sure you do the research for beneficiary designations for life insurance and annuities if you use them. Beneficiary designations are extremely important to asset protection. For most people, being prudent, buying sufficient liability insurance, then shielding most of your assets in retirement accounts, homestead, and other exemptions is enough to scale to a few $1 million and protect the ordinary person's wealth. Just think about how powerful that is. These simple instruments are enough to protect you from losing everything in a lawsuit. If you're an entrepreneur, business entities like LLCs or corporations are very important, but out of scope of this video. Once you start getting into the higher levels of wealth, like the tens of millions of dollars, There are other strategies to get into. These can be very esoteric and in some cases even theoretical. Some asset protection strategies still need to be validated by the courts. Some have even proven to be ineffective, such as many offshore strategies. Just be careful if you start exploring these strategies, since some attorneys will sell you such strategies whether they'll actually work or not. I suggest reading more details about asset protection and will recommend a couple books below. If you liked this video and would like to see more on asset protection or insurance, let me know in the comments below. Make sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you got value. It really helps support free financial education. Later.